Everybody, Quest-wise, back here again, and today, once again, we're going to be talking about some low fantasy gaming. This has been really popular on the channel. I'm glad you're all really enjoying the videos. I'm really enjoying talking about this game, and I think there's still a lot more that we can cover with this as well, so I don't see any slowing down for it. Today, we're going to talk about something that doesn't take up a lot of the book, but I think has a lot of potential in the game. In your campaigns, in the way that you run things, and that is madness. That is insanity. That is that sort of gripping fear that you get from maybe encountering a creature or a situation or an event that happens. These can be anything from stumbling upon a murder scene for the first time as your character is maybe low level, never been subjected to those kinds of things before. This could be a creature that just is horrifying to portray, to see. This could be magical spells, things like Creeping Doom, that just cause your sanity to snap. Now, before we go any further, I do want to say that these rules are optional. They are not a permanent part of the game. They are to be used at your discretion. And you just have to have the right kind of group to use madness in. It doesn't fit for every play style, but if you do have a group that it would work with, maybe you're doing a more horror type themed campaign. You have something that's maybe a little bit grittier kind of thing. Then these rules will work very well for you, and they're very simple. So Pickpocket Press has done a very good job at making them very accessible and very easy to use. Now, again, they are a little bit on the mature side of gaming. So, again, I would say make sure you clear this with your group before you start to use them. And I think that they would really enhance a game really, really well. So, one of the things that lots of games use madness rules. Lots of games use insanity rules. And some of them make it very, very complicated. Some of them kind of gloss over it very, lightly. I think that low fantasy gaming has that nice, beautiful middle ground when it comes to madness. It's not anything that's super complicated to use, and it's really at the discretion of the narrative, right? Between a discussion between the game master and the players, as it were, the player who might be subjected to this kind of stuff. So it fits in very, very well. There's not a lot of rules crunch behind it. And again, it's very subjective to the narrative and how the story is playing out as to how you want this to sort of happen. So you'd set up a situation, whatever it happened, might be. It might be a terrifying demon that your party encounters for the very first time. And you would make a roll for that. And again, this is very subjective to that kind of thing. You could set the difficulty class very, very high, depending on maybe it's some kind of abomination, some kind of thing that's just mind-shatteringly like Cthulhu-esque kind of thing. But you actually get to make a luck roll. That's a luck will roll, and to resist this sort of madness. And if you fail it, things start to happen to your sanity. And it's really interesting because there's a D20 chart in the book to give you suggestions on how things should happen. But some of those might not cover every sort of possible happenstance, right? The circumstance that causes the madness in your game might just not be covered by that D20 table. And it's specifically stated in the book to sort of create your own if that's what's needed. If you need to sort of make something that fits a little better than what the D20 roll is giving you, to go ahead and do that, right? And make it fit the character, make it fit the situation at hand of what's going on. But if you fail that, generally you'll start with a minor severity of some kind of a mania or a phobia or a fear or some kind of an aversion to something, and it can increase over time. And what I think is really kind of cool about this being sort of such a narratively driven sort of aspect of the game is that you can spend downtime to try to get rid of that, to alleviate that, do things that maybe help you forget about it or to work your way through those things. You can also have, there's types of magical healing. There's a spell called Purge the Accursed, which will help either lower the severity of the madness or alleviate it completely depending on the situation. But I think it's one of those really interesting things that can really add to a game if you're if you play it out correctly. I wouldn't use this to punish your players. I wouldn't use this to try to hamper one of your players. I would do it to enrich the game. But it's one of those things that I would use very narratively in order. I wouldn't let the player ever forget about it, right? I would keep that as a game master in my notes and sort of bring it up at the worst possible time for the player. And like I said, not to punish the player, not to hamper them in any way, but to sort of build the narrative, to build the story, to drive the story forward. To come into a situation when this thing sort of, re-exhibits itself at a worst possible time, can add to a very enriching, deep storyline. But again, like I said, it's not for every group, and it's really subjective to the players that you have. And it's one of those things, those little lacunae that you kind of want to talk about before you actually incorporate it into your game with your players to make sure they're cool with this kind of stuff. This, like I said, but it can really enhance the game, or it could really ruin a session if it's not played out very carefully. There's also a great chart on page 165 on different levels of madness. So generally it would start off at pretty minor, low severity level and could increase, or it could just be a full out mind-blowing sort of madness out of the gate. And there's a number of different things in the book that talk about how to alleviate those ideas and how to sort of deal with these madnesses and that kind of stuff as well too. But what I really love about it is it's really literally like 2.5 pages, maybe even just 2 pages. I can't remember. So it's not in your face. It's a great optional rule. I highly recommend that you find, if you have a group that this would work very well with, to check it out, give it a whirl. Maybe, do a one session that's a horror-based game and throw something in there and see how it works if you're not already doing something like that. So, madness in low fantasy gaming. This won't be the last video on cool stuff from low fantasy gaming. Still got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. But until next time, I am Questwise, and I am out.